Canada is reacting after the U.S. slapped tariffs of up to 24% on Canadian softwood lumber.
Our government disagrees strongly with this decision.
You know, when you're dealing with a bully, at some point you've got to stop backing up.
Standing up for Canada's interests is what my job is, whether it's softwood or software.
We are here for you. We are going to fight for you.
It is unfounded, and we will vigorously fight for the interests of the Canadian softwood lumber industry, its workers, and their communities.
And we are not going to give up this fight until it is won.
Well, my guest this morning is from Windsor, Ontario, the international trade lawyer Dan Ujczo. He's here to talk about the impacts and possible solutions to this. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, the new softwood lumber duties will be expected to be paid immediately. What area of the industry is going to be hit hardest first?
Well, there's really two large constituencies that'll be hit. First will be obviously the lumber producers in Canada. It's been projected there'll be up to about 25,000 lumber jobs, if not more, at risk there. Just as important as on the U.S. side of the border are the home builders, the folks that have contracts with those Canadian companies. Oftentimes, those are fixed contracts. They've agreed to purchase so much lumber from Canada to meet demand, and now those prices have just gone up, as you said, upwards of 24% in certain instances. So those folks will then have to try to pass some of that on to the consumer, but there's just a tipping point when you're building a house that there's only so much you can pass on. So it'll be U.S. home builders that are squeezed as well. They're projecting several thousand jobs could be impacted in the home building industry in the U.S.
Dan, you know, most of us hear this number, up to 24% of duties, but what kind of dollars are we talking about? How many millions are we looking at?
Well, it could be up to hundreds of millions, depending. One of the interesting pieces of the decision that came out of the U.S. Department of Commerce was that the duties are retroactive. So they're going back several months, which is somewhat extraordinary in a normal U.S. trade situation. We normally don't do that. That is because of some of the peculiarities of softwood lumber. So you're looking at several hundreds of millions of dollars here in terms of the industry itself, and those will at least be imposed through the end of the summer, which is peak building season in the U.S. So that's, and around the world, really. So that's the big issue that we'll see coming out of the decision.
The softwood lumber dispute, this has been going on for decades, and each time in the last 5 battles, Canada has come out on top saying, we don't have to pay the duties. Now we're hearing this again. Is there no other solution than this?
Well, your point is well taken. I mean, this started, Michael Jackson had just put out the Thriller album when we really started officially arguing over this. That's how long it's been, God rest his soul. But the reality is that there's always a political solution. The litigation will take place. More and more folks will be responding and intervening. As your opening segment noted, there's the elections in BC that'll come into play. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the Prime Minister and the President, as well as their respective governments and administrations coming together to work out a solution. And the hope is, hopefully softwood lumber 5 is going to be the last one on this. This has been going on way too long. It impacts all other aspects of the relationship that frankly work extremely well. And that's the issue with softwood. I mean, the overwhelming majority of the Canada-U.S. relationship has a very tidal nature. The tide comes in and it goes out every day. It's very harmonious. It's almost cottage and beach season. You can almost hear Jimmy Buffett playing in the background. That's the normal day of Canada-U.S. The flip side is that we do have a couple of disputes, several disputes, most of which have just reared their head in the last couple of weeks. And that's what there's now an opportunity to get this done and move forward.
Is there any concern then, Dad? We've got upcoming trade negotiations as we work out deals with this new administration. Is there a possibility that, our pushback, our desire to say, look, we're not going to pay these, will that affect these talks?
Well, I think, our law firm, Dickinson Wright, we're one of the few Canada-U.S. law firms out there. And so we have interest in lumber. We have interest on automotive. We're looking across the sectors. And that's really the concern, is that one issue over here will start infecting areas that we'll be talking about in the broader NAFTA renegotiation. I think as again, you said in your opening segment that Secretary Ross is looking at kind of a wholesale solution to the Canada-U.S. relationship. We had dairy last week. We had Buy America a couple days before that, or actually the same day as dairy. So that is the concern. I think what we have to do is, that's the problem with bringing these things out in public so vocally. And, you know, as soon as one side starts throwing sharp elbows, the other side has to as well to protect its interest. What we really need to do is get down to work here in the spring and the summer and work toward a NAFTA that really reflects the competitive advantages that we have in the North American and Canada-U.S. relationship.
All right, I guess we'll have to continue to watch closely over our tricky politicians up here in Canada. Dan, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.